Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Today I will answer a subscriber's question. Luis Nazareno asked this question. Can you make a video about the Trinity versus Unitarianism? Thank you. Thank you for asking this question because it is important to know why Christians do not affirm the beliefs of Unitarianism. Let's start by looking at Unitarianism. What is Unitarianism? Unitarianism is best understood in contrast to Trinitarianism. Orthodox Christianity believes that there is only one God, but this one God eternally exists in three distinct persons. The Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God. The Father is not the Son is not the Spirit, and the Spirit is not the Father. They remain three distinct persons, but together are one God. Unitarianism, however, does not affirm the doctrine of the Trinity. Why? Because they do not believe in the deity of Christ. So the difference between Unitarianism and Trinitarianism is not a disagreement on some secondary issue between Christians, like the disagreement concerning women pastors or infant baptism. The difference between Unitarianism and Trinitarianism is concerning foundational doctrines of the Christian faith, which means that Unitarianism should be considered heretical or outside of Christian orthodoxy. Now, to understand why I say that Unitarianism is a heretical belief, we must look at the development and history of this doctrine. Although Unitarian doctrine began to develop in 1784 with James Freeman, their beliefs can be traced back even further. Since the early church, people have denied the deity of Christ. And if a person denies the deity of Christ, they also deny the Trinity, since believing in the Trinity requires that one also believes in the deity of Christ. A well-known example is Arius. Arius was a false teacher during the early 4th century AD. He argued that Jesus was a created being. He said that if Jesus was fully human, then there is no way he can also be fully God. So he concluded that Jesus had a similar divine essence with God the Father, but not an identical divine essence. In response to Arius, the Christian church formed church councils to eventually develop a creed called the Nicene Creed in 325 AD, which officially denounced Arianism as a false doctrine. However, even after the formation of the Nicene Creed, there have continued to be heretical groups who deny the deity of Christ and the Trinity. During the Protestant Reformation, some people tried to revise or reject Trinity theories based on their own study of the Bible. Some argue that the Father alone is God, and that Jesus only had a human nature, and that the Holy Spirit is a divine power of the Father, but not a divine person. One group of Christians were in Poland who followed the teachings of Italian theologians Faustus Socinus. This group was later called Socinians, and the tradition continued until 1660 when its members were forced to leave Poland because of government persecution. Soon after the death of Socinus, his writings were published and translated into Latin and other languages, which allowed his teachings to influence later Unitarians. One of those Unitarians was John Biddle. He was influenced by his reading of the New Testament and the Latin translations of Socinius' writings. Biddle identified the Father with the one God and argued that the Bible teaches that Christ only had a human nature and was called God because of his immortality and dominion, and not because of his divine nature. He also believed that the Holy Spirit was not divine. Biddle's writings were rightly denounced by Puritan theologian John Owen for their Unitarian beliefs. Unitarianism began to grow in different parts of Europe to the point that many ministers from the Church of England began to embrace Unitarianism. These beliefs also spread to many churches in New England in the 18th century. For example, Harvard College was an institution that was founded to train Calvinist pastors, referring to pastors who followed the teachings of John Calvin. However, Harvard became Unitarian in its beliefs with the election of a Unitarian minister to their chair of divinity in 1805. Probably the most well-known and influential group of Unitarians is the Unitarian Universalist Church. This group would continue to regard Jesus as central to their faith, but have very different views about Jesus from Orthodox Christianity. They argue that Jesus was a man and not God. The reason why is because they do not believe that he physically resurrected. Instead, passages about his resurrection symbolically refer to how Jesus continues in the lives of his followers through his purpose and mission. Jesus' mission was to bring a message of reconciliation and to help people unite with one another. Jesus not only taught this mission, but lived it out himself, and his life is one that should be studied and emulated. However, Jesus should not be worshipped as God, according to Unitarians, Jesus never thought of himself as God. Although he seems to speak of himself as God in the Bible, Unitarians say that this is based on a misunderstanding of the text and the culture of that time. Now, one of the reasons for the rise of popularity of Unitarianism is that it is fully accompanied with rationalism. Rationalism is a result from the Enlightenment, which states that reason is the main source of truth. So when a person encounters anything supernatural in the Bible, it cannot be true according to rationalism. Instead, it reflects the culture's thinking, which unknowingly accepted mythology or symbolically refers to something else. This is one of the reasons why Unitarians reject the deity of Jesus and the teaching of the Trinity. Instead, Unitarians focus on the moral teachings of the Bible while rejecting the supernatural claims, such as Jesus' physical resurrection. Also, Unitarians argue that the Bible provides little to no support for Trinitarianism, and passages that do seem to support it were later added or are mistranslated. Now, I do need to note that Unitarianism is different than Modalism. What is Modalism? Modalism is also non-Trinitarian in their understanding of God. This doctrine teaches that God is one person who reveals himself in three different modes. Modalism is found today in the United Pentecostal Church. While both Modalism and Unitarianism are non-Trinitarian, Modalists do believe in the deity of Christ, while Unitarians do not. Nevertheless, both Unitarianism and Modalism are considered heretical teachings and should not be affirmed by Christians. Luis, I hope this video was helpful in explaining the difference between Unitarianism and Trinitarianism. Hopefully you understand why Unitarianism is considered heretical and why affirming the Trinity is necessary to affirm the deity of Jesus. If you missed a previous Q&A video about Sheol, I'll leave a link here for you to watch. Finally, if you want your questions to be answered with the video, leave a comment below and I will do my best to get to them. Until next time, see you!